Welcome to Sunrise Life, the podcast where we have deep conversations with freelance models. Today, I have Darian Leyce on the episode. How's it going?
Hi. Great.
Did I pronounce that right? I just want to make
Yes,
sure.
yes, you pronounced it perfect. A lot of people butcher my name,
Cool.
but you got it right.
I'm glad that I didn't butcher it. So I just met Darian at the Muses in Wonderland event. Plug, if you're a photographer, sign up next year because it was awesome. And you were so nice, and like everybody there was really nice. It was just a fantastic meetup.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I really think that the reason why it was so nice and why I feel like we kind of had that bonding experience with each other was the fact that the majority of us did not have cell phone signal out there. So we couldn't like retreat into ourselves and retreat into our phones like we so often do in in social situations. So I feel like that lack of access to the outside world on the internet really kind of helped everybody connect with each other and actually forced us to get to know each other and have conversations and be nice.
I agree. Actually, I thought about that after the event. During the event, I was like, shit, I want to upload behind the scenes, but I can't. But you're right. It made us, forced us to be connecting with each other.
Yeah, it was much a breath of fresh air. That was probably in all the events that I have been to, which is surprisingly a lot, even though I've only been modeling for about 2 years. It was probably one of the most positive events I have ever been to and ever experienced between the organization of the event, the venue itself, the models that were in attending. I mean, everybody was just so generous and so nice. And I actually didn't feel like it was that competitive of an environment.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody seemed to be really supportive of each other. So you said you've been modeling for 2 years. Is that just modeling full time 2 years or just modeling entirely for 2 years?
Modeling in general for 2 years. It started off as I booked myself a little boudoir shoot and I had so much fun doing it. And then the photographer was like, I'm serious, you should try modeling. Like, you're really good. And she barely had to direct me. She's like, I think you're a natural at it. So I, decided just to use, because I paid for the pictures and I made sure I was okay to use them for advertising. So from there, I opened up an Instagram and just kind of started posting and advertising myself for TFP. And, from there, things just really kind of grew and took off. And I, joined a more, what I now know is a controversial meetup group, but I joined with them. And that person who runs that group really helped, get my name out there and help me get into some of the larger events.
That's awesome. And so you're up there in the Northeast. I've been stalking all of your stuff and I see that you're up in the Northeast.
Yes, yeah, I'm based in Pennsylvania, but like I travel all over the DMV area. I really actually don't shoot too much in the state of Pennsylvania itself. I'm more in like the Maryland area.
Wow. I have like an intense fascination for models who are like just started traveling, who are like really taking it by the reins. And like, I honestly, I barely know you, but after meeting you at the event and like seeing your Instagram, and then you just told me that you just started modeling 2 years ago and you're already traveling, like, that's really cool.
Yeah, my very first like actual travel, like where I had to get on a plane and go really far away from home. My first travel experience was I was about exactly a year into my career and I went to Vegas.
Sweet.
Yep.
How was Vegas?
Oh goodness. That trip, I think anybody who was there on that trip agrees that it was a disaster. I barely
Oh,
got images back. Thankfully, I was sponsored to go out there, so I didn't really like lose any money. I think I only had to pay like $100 towards a plane ticket or something. Everything else was totally sponsored. I had transportation sponsored, my place was sponsored, food was taken care of, but it definitely came with a cost. My sanity.
yeah, that's I mean, that's how you learn sometimes. So you went, was it a TFP event, but hardly anybody returned images or?
Yeah, it was a TFP event. So some of us were sponsored to go out there with said meetup group that I just mentioned earlier in the conversation.
Ah,
We flown out there to this house. I think it was like from like certain hours of the day to certain of the day we were to just like shoot with as many photographers that were on site as we could. Photographers were encouraged to give us images back. Unfortunately, the majority did not do that, which sucks.
that
But
sucks.
But some of us models, though, kind of like how we did at Muses, where we kind of ran off with our cell phones and we're taking pictures of each other at one point just to make sure, like, oh, I really love this outfit and I want to get images back. So we would just run around with our iPhones at some of the
Yeah,
locations.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's good. I mean, at least you probably like learned stuff and hopefully got some images and met people that helped your career, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I network with some really valuable people, and I'm thankful that I got the opportunity. Bummed that there was plagued with drama and stuff, but I also feel like when you have a house full of people, full of models and photographers, that is just kind of bound to happen.
What kind of drama, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh man. Oh, okay. So I kind of did a no-no. I accidentally, and very much emphasis on accidentally, let her model at the club. And
Oh
after that
shit.
happened, it all just fell apart. And I felt so terrible. Like, in my defense, we told her we ordered the Uber and she decided to go back out onto the dance floor. And I was like, I really don't want her to do that because because we were in VIP and I looked into the room where she was at and it was just a sea of people. And I was like, our Uber is almost here. Like, I can't abandon this. So I ended up just being like, screw it, bye. And I left. I still feel terrible about that. I apologized to her like the next day. Her and I hashed it out. We talked. I explained to her, I didn't really know about club etiquette because I had kids mad young. So I kind of skipped that part of my young adult life of going out to the club and going out in general. So that was like my first experience. I didn't know about certain, do's and don'ts. So I blamed on my own ignorance. But yeah, there was that. There was just, gosh, I was having a really bad day. We went to Nelson's Ghost Town. I was
Oh,
having
cool.
a really cool space. Owners were really interesting people. The guy had rattlesnakes in his freezer.
Oh,
He was like,
wow.
"You want to see my rattlesnake collection?" Flings open the freezer, and there's just like all these dead rattlesnakes just chilling. Like I was like, "Oh, okay, so we really out here in the desert." But yeah, it was just a bad, bad day because I was having a really hard time getting people to shoot with me, and I was kind of just walking around for what felt like forever. Eventually, I started getting a headache because of the heat,
Mhm.
and I the event runner was kind of like not happy with me for sitting down, and I kind of had
Oh my
at
god.
some point, you're in the heat for so long, your mood's gonna go from happy to like, I'm pissed to be here, like I just want to go home. So he was
Yeah.
mad at me for having bad attitude. So right then and there, like I think, gosh, this was day 2 of being in Vegas. I was like, I quit, unapologetically quit. I knew I was flying out the next day anyway, so I was like, oh well, we'll just suck it up and being awkward for like 24 hours.
Oh man, I'm sorry. That sounds like it sucks.
It sucked, but I learned so much. I definitely learned, like, I was able to apply the negative experiences from there and apply what I could do better when traveling again. I actually did not travel again until Muses. I took some significant time off of any type of travel and any type of large event work, for the next time that I did that. So for Muses, instead of being totally reliant on somebody else and having somebody sponsor me and feeling like I was indebted to them, I sponsored myself. Like transportation, I brought my own car.
Sweet.
I shared an Airbnb with a whole bunch of other amazing women. We made sure that, we each had food for ourselves. We ended up, doing family dinner anyway, but we still had options of like being able to fend for ourselves. So I made sure to make it like a totally independent trip where, I had, plan A, plan B, plan C in case if anything went wrong, instead
That's
of just
good.
being totally reliant on somebody else.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I've heard and also experienced that sometimes when the photographer books your flight and then books your accommodation, they feel like they might be entitled to some kind of special attention, or if you fall out of favor with them, I've heard in some cases they might cancel your return flight because they have the power to fuck with your travel plans if they're the one that booked it. So
Oh,
yeah, way
yeah.
to go for taking the reins on that. And in the end, it's like I think it feels better and you'll be more confident in your trips if you're, taking the reins on all that. It is tempting when somebody's like, "Oh, come to my city, I'll fly you out." It is tempting.
It is very tempting 'cause it's like, "Oh, I don't have to put this money out, and then I can just, do nothing but profit." But then, like, I don't know, I know some sponsors, and I've heard sponsor horror stories from other models where it's like that sponsor feels like that they own them almost. It's like,
Hmm.
and I'm not gonna pay you until I'm good and ready and, like, all this. Thankfully, I haven't had that type of experience with sponsors. It was just more along the lines of just feeling like, I owed them everything and stuff and, them kind of being like, "Oh, I can kick you out of the house if I want to," and all this and that. Like, that was very intimidating, being like, "Crap, I'm out here with no money." So,
That
for Muses,
sucks.
I definitely made sure to have all these backup plans in mind, and you know like that was much more comforting. And that's like, what I would give advice to any newer models as well, being like, make sure that you have plan A, plan B, plan C, just in case.
That's great. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
I am 28 years old,
Oh, wow.
and most think I'm a lot younger than that, so I'm just
I
going to
I
take
would have
that and
guessed
run with it.
I would have guessed like 23.
Yep, that's when I get between 21 and like 23, 24, which is great for my career.
Yeah, totally. So you started 2 years ago. You started when you were 26. And
Yep.
like what made you, besides the photo shoot that you had where they told you you should do this, like career-wise, like is freelance modeling, like where does it fit into your life? Is it like your main thing, or do you have other like income streams as well?
It is my main thing. It's like my one source of my income. I just started teaching pole dancing, which I do a little bit on the side. But yeah, for the most part, it just a nice supplemental income. It pays for, some fun stuff and whatnot.
I saw that you were teaching dance and I like looked at some of your videos and I think that stuff is like way cool.
I freaking love it. I actually got into dance because of modeling. I was like, "Oh, I wanna get more toned and get a little bit more fit." And I think that maybe, like, learning the different dance moves and stuff with pole, like, it will help me be more fluid in my posing and give me new posing ideas, and it definitely has. And then it now is, like, my first love. Like, I love modeling, but dance, like, if I had to pick between the 2, I would choose dance and aerial, like, any day of the week just because of how much fun it is, and it's a different type of community as well.
That's awesome. I wish I had the dedication for that, but I think I might be shooting myself in the foot a little bit by traveling too much. I don't have like a consistent way of like getting to a dance studio, I suppose.
You can also get a pole for your home too.
That would be cool. That would be cool. I used to have a pole in my house a long time ago. I used to live in a party house. This is like 2 Christies ago. But I didn't know how to do any tricks on it. I just bought it because I lived in a party house and I thought it would add to the atmosphere.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it definitely will add to the atmosphere. But please tell me it was not a cheap one off of Amazon, because man, do I cringe at the sex store poles and the Amazon poles. Like, oh, look at this pole for $100. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna snap in half and you're gonna die.
So I bought it on Craigslist, and when I
Oh,
went to go buy it, there was like two ladies with strollers that were selling it to me. And so they had their like infants in their strollers, and I met them at the Tacoma Mall parking lot, and I bought this. It's the kind of pole that you like twist and it like pressurizes against the ceiling and the
tension
floor.
pole. Yep.
Yeah. So we did it wrong and it ended up punching a hole in our ceiling, and yeah, so
Oh,
I
you have to
am
you have to use the stud finder. That's why they tell you to use the stud finders. That way you don't put a hole in your ceiling.
I
Oh my
think that
gosh.
we did and we just did it wrong. I don't know. We didn't know what we were doing.
Oh my gosh. That sounds so bad.
Yeah. And plus people that were like dudes would like swing around on it that they were like over the weight limit and it would like fall over, and yeah. Anyway, so I had a pole, but I screwed that one up. I didn't have any good experience of like actually practicing any cool moves on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That being said, the attempts that I did make do make me appreciate people like you who are talented with doing interesting things on a pole, because that is hard.
Oh, thank you so much. It is hard. It is very, very hard. It's like people ask me for like, "Oh, well, how can I do this trick? And how can I do that trick?" And I'm like, "Okay, conditioning." It is a lot of calisthenics exercises, lots of push-ups, lots of exercising, utilizing the pole and engaging those muscle groups, because that's where you get the strength from, to be able to lift yourself aerially and spin around and go up into handstands and only be gripping the pole with one hand and stuff. It's a lot of body strength. So I always tell people, like, go to the gym and work out, condition, get your muscles muscling,
Yeah.
and then try it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. I think a lot of people like, because of its taboo or whatever, a lot of people don't give the credit of the amount of effort and training that it takes to do that.
Oh man, my very first pole practice I ever went to, I woke up the next day and literally felt like I was hit by a bus. Like, I was so sore, and all I did was like a couple of moves, and I was like, why am I so sore?
Wow. That's crazy. So with your modeling, like where do you see it taking you? Do you just want to keep on riding the wave and like traveling for modeling, or like do you have aspirations in it? Like I'm so curious, just because this is a different era today, than it's a completely different world to when I first got into traveling modeling. Like everything is different. Like social media is like, the main way of communication and booking and all this stuff. Like so like I'm just so curious, people who just got into it, like what are your desires, and like how do you see it fitting into your life in the next few years or whatever?
I have just been enjoying. I used to have all these crazy goals in mind, and now that I have been in it for as long as I've been in it, I'm just really enjoying riding the wave and just kind of seeing where it takes me. And I've always kind of been like that. Like I used to be a competitive gymnast and a competitive cheerleader. And back when I was really, really little, like I remember how my journey with competitive gymnastics started was I looked and I saw the girls in these fancy, beautiful green leotards. They were called the Green Girls, and they were the team for the gym that I was training at. And I looked at my coach and I was like, I want to be like them. I want to do what they're doing. And my coach told me, well, put your mind to it and work really hard and maybe you can. And I kind of took that as a challenge. So I challenged myself. I made team. I became one of the green girls, and I kept going with it. And same with cheerleading too. I wanted to do the flying stunts, all that stuff. So I worked really hard at it and, eventually made it onto a competitive cheerleading team and even cheered in high school. And my passion in life is proving people wrong. I was a young parent. I got pregnant when I was 20 years old, gave birth when I was 21, and everybody was like, oh, she's not even going to be a good mom, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my
She's just
gosh.
going to leave her kid with her family. And man, did I bust my ass. I was working part-time at Men's Warehouse. I busted my ass, saved as much money as I possibly could, gave me and my son a roof over our heads, really was with him 24/7, like never gave him to any family members for babysitting and stuff just because I wanted to prove people wrong. So when it came to all of that personality bit and put that into modeling, I really wanted to kind of see if I could do it and see how far I could go with it just to see. Because I've always wanted to do modeling. I tried it way back when I was younger and got told, oh, because you're not going to be 10 feet tall, you can't be a model. So now I'm like, ha, I'm going to prove people wrong. I'm going to have to do some weird stuff sometimes, but it's still modeling.
Oh my gosh, can you elaborate on the weird stuff part a little bit?
Oh man, I have a regular and I love him to death. He is a very nice person. This is definitely not a horror story, but one of my
Okay.
regular gigs, and I probably get booked by him like every other month, once a month, but he does wrestling videos and like damsel in distress, but it's not normal people wrestling. It's wrestling with inflatables and stuffed animals.
Oh my god.
And I just have an absolute blast with it. I slap like the plastic octopus across the face. I'm like, don't you touch me. Get off me, you bastard. And I slap it and I just like punching on the octopus. We like wrap me up in like stuffed animals that are like as big as me, sometimes bigger. And we like wrap me up really tight and then like make me fight my way out.
Oh my
And
god.
it is such a good release though. Like I freaking love it. Like I love bookings like that. I've done wrestling videos with other models that same photographer has booked me for. Currently planning a jello wrestling, baked bean wrestling thing.
Oh my god, yes.
But
That's
I love
awesome.
that kind of stuff because I feel like it's such a good like release and it kind of shows like, like there can be the positivity in the weirdness. I do videos for slime models on occasion where like I have dumped food all over myself. It's super gross, but like part of me like really loves it because it's something fun to do. I do the tickling videos too where I've gone in and had my feet tickled.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so like people are like oh that's kink and some people don't I feel like some of the kink community gets a bad rap for being predatory, but any of the kink producers that I have worked with have actually been nothing but nice and super respectful of boundaries. I've been very very fortunate that I don't have too many horror stories, especially
That's
when it comes to
good.
the kink community.
So I have a couple things. Firstly, the guy with the stuffed animals that you wrestle with, is he like in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania?
Yes he
Oh my
is.
god, I work with that guy.
You know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about so
a
much.
long time, like 2014.
Oh man, yes, he is still at it. He is still kicking with it, and man, like he's so nice. Like he's very nice,
He
very
is nice.
respectful. I personally haven't heard anybody having a bad experience with him. I know everybody kind of has their different experiences or has their different takes on things, especially when it comes to that end of the community. But yes, I heard my videos do very well too.
Cool. I think he booked a hotel for me, and we did a video shoot where I was fighting with his octopus in the bathtub.
Oh, see, I wrestled with it. I think I know exactly what octopus you're
Oh
talking
my
about because I
god.
wrestled with the same one. That was the one that had me wrapped up, and I slapped it and called it a
Oh,
bastard.
that's so funny because like we don't know that we've done the same shoot with the same person like many years apart, but I love finding out about this stuff when I talk to people. It's funny because like some of the weird fetish stuff, like you wouldn't believe like what the hell like this is people are into this, but then somebody on the internet or a producer in person wants to hire you to meet up with another model to do this weird, I don't know, like pie in the face thing or something. So you make friends because you got booked to pie each other in the face or tickle each other or something like
Yeah, I enjoy the tickling, and I hate being tickled, but like I oddly enjoyed it though because it felt like it was kind of like laugh therapy, I guess.
yeah, like if you're gonna pay me to tickle me, that's cool. Otherwise, like I don't want to be
Absolutely not.
tickled either. Yeah, I have done a fair share of fetish stuff, but I don't do it as much anymore. I'll only do it if it sounds like it's gonna be fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I have I do like, custom content and stuff too. I had a custom content order that was just me putting on a whole bunch of different pairs of jeans. He just wanted videos of me putting on jeans and I was like, "Okay, that floats your boat, dude."
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the jeans fetish. I think that there's a rule. I think it's like rule 42 or something. If you can think of it, there's a porn category for it and people making videos of it. Yeah, crazy. And then with the I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, tickle fetish producers. I've only had one weird interaction, but I have noticed. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there are a few tickle fetish producers that are like extremely possessive of the models that work for them. They say, "Oh, you can't work for me if you worked for my competitor," and they'll be weird about it.
Oh, that's not cool. I think people need to be able to make their money, and people should be supportive of that. Like, share the wealth.
I agree. I do agree. I think that it might be some weird like possession thing. And there are some photographers. I don't know if this is still a thing today, but earlier in my modeling career, like people that I worked with like frequently when I was starting out, later on they would like talk about me as if I didn't appreciate them, or they would talk about other models who went on to become really successful, but they had worked with certain photographers first, and they'll say, "Oh, she used to be really great to work with, but now she's got her nose in the air, won't trade with me anymore." Or they'll see that you worked with another photographer that they get jealous about, like, "Oh, she won't work with me, but she'll work with him." Have you experienced any of that type of drama with photographers?
Have a little bit. Definitely like the, "Oh, well, I was good enough to do TFP with back then, but now you're throwing rates at me." And it's like, "Listen, like my skill set since we've shot TFP has improved." And that's how I like to explain it to them. Like, back when I was shooting with you, I really didn't offer so much of as a service because I needed help, identifying my light source and I needed help with, sometimes with posing direction and stuff. Now that I totally self pose, I provide my own wardrobe. I do all this stuff, and but our skill set no longer matches up, and then I
That's
have some
tough.
people, yeah, and I but the worst part is when you're cutting off TFPs and you've created kind of a friendship with that individual, and
Yeah.
it really sucks having to be like, your work doesn't benefit, I don't get anything for my time anymore, really, like
Yeah.
your work is kind of underneath of that scale, which I hate saying because it sounds so snobby, but it's true. You have to value what you're putting out there,
Yeah.
and eventually, like, it just doesn't match up to what you're trying to be about. It sometimes just doesn't match up to your branding. But
Yeah.
it hurts my own feelings when I have to do that to somebody who I consider like a friend or that I've built a, cool relationship with, and I have to kind of cut it off.
Yeah, that does suck. But I mean, if you're excelling in like your skill set and that photographer isn't like, matching that effort by excelling with his skills or her skills, I suppose. I can't be sexist here. But I hate to say this, and some photographers on this podcast are gonna really hate this, but a lot of photographers plateau at a certain photography level and they feel like they know everything and don't want to further their experience as far as like what kind of lighting or experimentation they want to do. And you're right, a lot of people who've been shooting for a long time, they don't improve the quality of their work, but a lot of people do. But I've seen such a vast variety of photographers who they say they've been shooting for 40 years, but all their photos are out of focus. Or they've been shooting for 2 years and they learned a shit ton off of watching YouTube videos and they're on the cutting edge of technology and they're amazing. So there's a variety of people and their talent.
I know some photographers probably listen to this, some probably hate this as well, but anytime anybody introduces themselves to me and they go, I've been photographing for 40 years, I do not message them back. I'm like, nope. Because to me, it's something about it is just a red flag to me. Because anytime
Yeah.
I've ever shot with anybody who's like, I've been photographing for this many years, and I'm like, I started photographing before digital was a thing, and I was on the old school film, and blah, 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 blah. Like, oh gosh, I'm like, no, don't do that. Oh man, now I'm not even gonna message you back. I hate it, but I've had to learn just like a lot of those. For some reason, it's just a red flag.
Yeah, it took me a lot longer of a time to figure that one out, but you're right. Like when I see that in their first line of themselves in their profile or their model mayhem or whatever, I'm like, oh, this guy's got his head shoved up his ass and he doesn't know. He only shoots on auto, probably, and he'll probably stand and shoot down on you and make you really short.
I hate that so much. I'm like, just get low and tilt the lens up a little bit because I've disappointed some people. I'm extremely short. Most people think I'm around 5'7" because I photograph long and tall if they photograph me well.
Yeah.
And so I've walked into shoots before and they, oh no, she's short. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, but if you shoot me low, I promise you will not be disappointed.
Yeah. How tall are you?
I am 4'11".
Oh my gosh, you are
I'm a
short.
teeny tiny. I call myself a spicy nugget. I'm the Wendy's spicy chicken nugget left in the backseat of a mom's minivan. That is my essence.
Yeah, I'm five. Okay, I say I'm 5'2". I'm like 5'1.5", but whatever.
All right, so we're gonna round you down and say you're 5'1". Okay, so you're only a little bit taller than me.
Yeah, I mean, but you're right. As long as the photographer has their angles right, it honestly doesn't matter unless they're making you pose with another model who's way taller than you. You can't tell.
Oh yeah, I've had to get snooty with that too a little bit. Like when they want to pair me with somebody, like my general rule of thumb is like if my head is beneath their shoulder line, I won't shoot with them just because I'm gonna make her look stupid tall and she's gonna make me look ridiculously short and it's not gonna be flattering unless we're like only sitting. If we're sitting and we're not standing, then I'm like, okay, that's fine. But if
Yeah.
they like want us like standing back to back, which I've had before, I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
god, you're gonna make me look like a midget. Like, what is this?
Yeah, I feel that. If they're making you do like matching poses, it is awkward. But I did co-host these photo events with another gal who's 5'9", and
Oh,
I'm
wow.
really, she's way taller than me, and we just don't do symmetrical poses. We'll do like, staggered or one standing, one sitting, or one in front of the other or whatever. But it hasn't. I mean, in some images, I'm like, wow, she's way taller than me, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't write it off completely as long as I coordinate with the photographer in advance. Like, okay,
Yeah, it
she's
definitely depends on the photographer. If they know their angles and they know kind of what they're doing and there's like a concept in mind, I'm like, okay, but if it's just like a run of the mill GWC, I'm like, no, absolutely not.
yeah. With all this being said about like weird photography experiences, I want to bring up a part of the podcast that I have everybody do. It's called the photo shoot fail of the week. Can you describe a scenario, whether the photo shoot itself was weird or crazy or the photographer was out of line? What's your photo shoot craziest story?
Oh my gosh, man, I've got a couple. Am I allowed to share more than one?
Yeah, totally. You can share
Okay,
more than
so
one.
we're gonna go from like the most tame to like the worst of the worst. So
Okay.
my most tame one would be I had a booking at a workshop and I had a one-on-one and this individual, oh my gosh, he brings in this mirror and he sits it on like kind of like on the ground like on like a raised like kind of like on a platform type thing and he's like, "Okay, I want you to like get, totally nude." And I'm like, "Okay, cuz this is a nude booking." So I get undressed and then I'm like, "Okay, so what's the mirror for?" And he's like, "I want you to sit on the mirror." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, I'm sitting on this mirror, butt naked. Then he's like, I'm making model faces. I'm trying just to get through it because I'm like, this is going to look really, really freaking weird. I can already see it in my head that this is not going to look flattering. Then he wants me to be making nothing but cheesy smiling faces.
Yeah.
So somewhere on a photographer's hard drive is pictures of me sitting on a mirror smiling. There was another, and that same photographer during that same session was like, okay, then he wanted me to sit on a bunch of pillows. He took the mirror away, had me sit on a bunch of pillows, and he made me lean back and made me stick my tongue out, took the picture, shows it to me, grinning from ear to ear, and goes, "Looks like you're licking your own." Hoo ha.
What?
And I was like, oh my God. He's like, "Do you like it? What do you think of it?" And I was like, "This is great."
What the fuck?
I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, he was an interesting character. The event runner knew what he was about and like had kind of preface being like, "Oh, you have a booking with this guy. He's super weird." And I was like, "Okay, then why do I have a booking with this guy if he's super weird?" And he goes, "Oh no, he's harmless. He's not going to touch you." And I was like, "Okay, I guess so."
That is
Um,
weird.
yeah, now like kind of more into like, no, that was like lighthearted, kind of more. There's more two serious stories. The first one being that I used to, and I no longer offer this anymore because of this incident. I no longer will shoot it. I used to do shibari. I got into a little bit into the rope space. My first couple of shibari shoots were with somebody else, and they went really amazing. He was an excellent rigger. I never had any pinching. I actually did suspension work with him because I trusted him so much. So then another shibari person reached out to me and was like, "I want to book you for a shibari shoot." So I said, "Okay, not all riggers are the same." This one, unfortunately, was a bad apple. So he has me rigged. He has me in one of those like ties where my arms were tied to my calves.
Okay.
And I was totally spread eagle. We're shooting. He keeps looking at, this is a full nude shoot. He keeps looking at my lady parts, licking his lips and going, and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
Ugh.
but I'm like, you know what? Just push through it because this booking was a lot of money. So I was like, just push through it. Just do it for the money. Just do it for the money. Just try to tune it out. And then eventually, though, I had to get a point where I was like, you know what? We need to stop this right now because he had said something along the lines of, I wish that I could,
Oh my
eat you out
god. Oh,
or,
I'm cringing
put
so hard right now.
put a vibrator on you. And I'm just like, okay, we're done here. We're done here. Also, he had me tied with macrame, not even regular shibari rope like you're supposed to. So I was tied with macrame. I was itchy. My skin was crawling for more than one reason.
Ugh.
It was terrible, but I did ask to be cut out of the tie and that we were finished and that I just needed to get home and get paid. I never heard from him ever again. I never spoke to him ever again. Thank God. As far as I know, he's not super active in the community anyway. It was just such a weird and awful experience, really.
That's fucked. Yeah, I'm cringing for you on that, like bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And after that, I no longer offer shibari anymore just because of that particular situation. Because, I didn't want to have myself again, kind of bringing back to the Vegas conversation, vulnerability. I'm totally reliant on this son of a bitch to untie me.
Yeah.
I mean, and realistically, like he could have done whatever he wanted, and it wouldn't have been able to stop him physically. So that is why I no longer will offer that, content. I don't shame
Yeah.
anybody for shooting that content. It's just not for me anymore, just because of that one bad experience.
Yeah. And what I've learned in that regard is that oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, if they're doing like damsel in distress, like content for their website or whatever, generally they want the model to have a good experience if they're making money off of their content. But if it's just some guy that's like hiring you for a shibari gig, for his own like personal desires or whatever,
Personal collection.
yeah, I'm assuming that this guy that did this was probably the latter, the personal collection type guy.
Yes, he definitely was a personal collection type guy. I never saw those images. I've done work for art galleries and stuff before, and none of that ever came up in a gallery. None of it, it's just, yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
Hard no for me. Will never recommend anybody ever work with him.
Yeah. Is that in the Northeast? I'm not gonna ask you to say his name, and I was curious.
Yeah, yeah, that is in the Northeast. It's more Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area. He
Alright.
is a known creeper, and that was my own mistake too, was I had heard horror stories. I had a shoot with him that wasn't shibari related, and it went
Mhm.
okay. I think it was actually like my second photo shoot as a model that I had with him. So at the time, I didn't really like understand because looking back on things now and knowing what I know now, I was like, oh my God, why'd you even go back for a second shoot with that guy? Because it was
Yeah.
like a lot of like pressuring and stuff. But I just kind of was like, oh, well, maybe they just really want those particular images. And I'm like, no, nobody should ever be pressuring you to do anything more than what you pre-discussed.
Yeah.
But back then, I was totally on my own. This is even before I got into that meetup group. I was completely freelancing it 100% on my own. didn't even have like access to model safety groups or model safety group chats yet. I had to completely rely on like my own intuition with that. But then,
Yeah.
I gave him a second chance and I was like, okay, so we definitely didn't imagine that whole thing. He's definitely unsafe.
And this is a really interesting topic too, because when it comes to newer models breaking into more full-time modeling, they're the ones that are the most vulnerable to this type of thing. And it's us experienced models who've been doing it for a while who are already in the safety groups who like are already talking to each other. But there's like a disconnect between the ones that are just getting into it and the ones that are already in the safety groups. I feel like there needs to be more of a outreach effort where people can there's got to be like systems through social media where people can reach out to others who are like, hey, I see that you're just getting into modeling and you're in my area, by the way, look out for these people or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely wish that there was like some sort of like roster that you could sign per area. Be like, I'm a new model, like help me. And I have had new models point to my direction before. I always tell like people that I'm photographer friends with, hey, if you ever work with a new model, please send her my way, and I would be more than happy to give her the list of known photographers in the area. Be more than happy to give her some advice. That's actually how my relationship began with my best friend. She was a brand new model, and a boudoir photographer friend of mine hit me up and was like, hey, she needs some advice, like she's just not breaking into the space, and I know that a lot about who to and to not work with, etc. So he threw her my way, and we blossomed actually into a beautiful, wonderful friendship, and now we hang out all the time.
That's awesome. Did you say you had another horror story or was that
Oh
the
yes, yeah, I have number three. This one's pretty heavy.
I have to provide a disclaimer to give you some context about the story that Darian is about to tell, without giving up too much information because I don't want to do a disservice to my podcast guest. However, the story that she's telling is a very vulnerable story, and there are some details in her story that she did not feel comfortable exposing because she had been threatened by some people that were involved in this in a legal way. So she was very careful with her wording and the things that she said to protect herself. Just understand that as she's telling this story, she's being very careful with her words.
And I do
okay?
want to preface this by saying that what I'm about to say, it was 100% consensual. There was no RAPing involved in anybody. This was just a really poorly communicated, executed shoot.
Okay.
So I had a shoot with another model, and we were going into this shoot knowing that we were going to be filming content for OnlyFans and knowing that we were going to be filming adult content. Back when I first got started in modeling, I was more into the adult industry space more than anything. So we had scenes pre-planned out. Everything was planned. Everything was good to go. So her and I were shooting together and stuff. Everything's going fine. Another model shows up to the house that we were at this studio for this workshop. And this workshop was for the first model. I was just like a secondary model, pick up some extra bookings, and then film some OnlyFans content. But then
Mm-hmm.
this third girl shows up, and the person running the thing was like, hey, how about all three of you guys shoot together? And we all were kind of like, not really pre-planned, but I guess so. And then you know how like when a kid is playing with their Barbie dolls and it's like, now kiss each other, mwah, 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 mwah. That was
Yeah.
kind of how this situation turned into. And then it was like, okay, you guys are now going to, have a threesome. And we all just kind of looked at each other. And because I was so, I was still like a year into this, I didn't really like know how to go, no, this is out of my realm of comfort. So I rolled with it. And so did the other girl. And so did the third individual model. She also too rolled with the whole situation. But it was just so awkward. Like during filming, like the one girl had already done like threesomes and stuff before. So she was literally telling us what to do while filming. It was just super awkward, a very uncomfortable situation. The third model that got added ended up running away mid-scene. Like she rolled out of the bed and like left the room, and I felt
Whoa.
terrible. Yeah, I mean, I thought good on her for leaving and for kind of drawing her line somewhere. I was kind of hoping that she would, because like, this is really awkward and really uncomfortable. Yeah, and like a whole bunch of drama happened after that because that other girl was talking about things and there was some exaggerations happening, as sometimes people do. She was a brand new mod to the space as well. I felt terrible that she exaggerated some things because those exaggerations, end up getting somebody accused of RAP, which I don't think is ever okay. You have to be so careful with
Mhm.
flinging that word around that is not a word that needs to be taken lightly. Nothing that happened during that shoot was that, but it was just really shitty planned, poorly executed, super awkward. Like none of us, we all got sent the video footage. None of us ended up reselling the footage just because you could see it in all of our faces how uncomfortable we were, you know?
Oh, yeah. So, was it the photographer that suggested that this is gonna be a threesome now, or
Yeah, yes, yeah, it was them that suggested it. They were like, "Okay," like, it was like, again, it was like Barbie dolls, "Now kiss each other, mwah, mwah, mwah," And, me being, I'm a people pleaser. At the time I was. Now I'm kind of like, "Meh, you can go ahead and screw off, like, I really don't care what you think of me." But back then, I wanted to please so bad. So I was like, "Okay, we're just gonna suck it up and do it. You like girls anyway. Here's 2 of them," you know? And yeah, now looking back on things now, I really wish I would've just been like, "This wasn't pre-planned, like, I can't do this, like, screw people pleaser."
that's really interesting. So you like the third model jumping into the mix and then the photographer suggesting, or I suppose videographer was video, whatever. That person filming probably just assumed that everybody was going to be okay with it, and they probably also had ulterior motives because they wanted to see that happen. Is that kind of the, am I right on that?
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it was entirely, like, malicious intent, like, we're gonna make everybody super uncomfortable, because nobody wants super uncomfortable video footage. You want the footage to be hot and sexy. It's not hot and sexy when you're going, "What do I do with my hands? There's 2 ladies." Like, I don't like, does each of you get a hand? I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely think that it was just really crap communication, and I definitely think that with, scenes, especially when you're not branded as that, and especially when
Yeah.
a photographer, like, like there are, like porn producers and stuff. But with porn production, what people don't see is the planning that goes into it, prepping your body that goes into it. Like I know, porn stars work really hard to prep their bodies for certain scenes and stuff. So I definitely think that, like, and that's where I think, porn culture is a little bit toxic, with porn being so easily accessible on the internet, is like you see, 2 people banging. You don't see the people, laughing and cracking jokes in the middle of scenes. You don't see them pre-discussing boundaries, you don't
Mhm.
see any of that. So some of these photographers, because they're so used to just seeing just the porn shot, they think that that's how it should be when they don't realize that pre-planning that has to go into it. So that way you don't have some poor girl running away mid-shoot because she's like freaked out about being thrown into an all-girl threesome.
Yeah, I heard a quote that has always resounded with me. It says, "If it's not a hell yes, it's a no." So it
Yep.
sounds like it might be like a everybody was people pleasing to continue the situation, but it wasn't a hell yes.
No, it definitely was not a hell yes. I mean, like, I was hell yes to, it just being me and the one girl because I already knew her. We
Yeah.
had, a modeling relationship already. I had shot with her previously and stuff. So I was like, and prior to the whole, like, threesome incident, it was a very lighthearted day. And then that whole incident happened and it just kind of everything just went to shit. When the other girl ran off, me and the other girl, like me and the first model that I was originally supposed to just shoot with, we talked and we were like, okay, we're gonna turn lemons into lemonade and we're just gonna go live on OF and try to make some extra money to make, this day just a little bit better. Maybe we can, at least if we walk away with some extra cash, it's kind of worth it. But yeah, like my advice to anybody who's looking to get into that type of space or make that type of content, like you can't just be like, yeah, we're going to make content. You have to actually like plan out what you're going to do, who is going to do what, write out, your boundaries and your limits. I've done shoots like that before where I've shot adult content and we wrote out boundaries and they went really smooth, Like
Yeah.
everybody jokes about my one boundary being like absolutely no butt stuff. I'm like, no butt stuff. Don't even ask about it. I won't do butt stuff, to you or to myself.
Yeah, and as long as it's expressed in advance, then, that feels good to like move forward with the filming.
Exactly. My word of advice to anybody who's, doing the modeling thing, don't ever on the spot film any type of content like that. Also, just because it's not safe. I mean, people should be getting, STD screened. Not to say that people are dirty. It's just, you never know. There are people who've only slept with one person who end up with a very unfortunate, STI or something. Like there
Yeah.
should be STD screening involved, and there should be like 100% everybody's on the same page, group chat, planning who is going to do what, who is comfortable with what, who is uncomfortable with what.
Yeah. I just recently had like a group Zoom call with an intimacy coordinator who works in like Hollywood movie scenes for like sex scenes and stuff. So, and she was mentioning that it's common in like the mainstream film industry to have an intimacy coordinator set. But back in the day, like the 80s and 90s, before it was like standard, it was really hard to get intimacy coordinators involved because the producers didn't want to have another person on scene that was allowing the actor or actress to say yes or no to what they were going to be doing. And that intimacy coordinator and I were on a group call with another model who is creating a document that's going to be passed around, and they're working on the legal logistics of it, but it's supposed to help the modeling community, particularly in erotic modeling shoots, to have a document that has a list of like all the things to circle yes or no to. And I thought it was a really interesting conversation, and that having that document readily available for people could be like helpful for the industry, or just be used as a tool to like communicate that.
And I definitely think that something like that could be helpful. I think it should be part of just like the call sheet. I've done couple of photo shoots where there's been a call sheet, like what I'm expected to do, what wardrobe I'm to bring, how to do my hair and makeup. And those call sheets are super, super helpful. So I feel like if you're going to be doing a duo set with another model, that should be part of the call sheet of just like, this is what's expected. This is what I'm looking from you. List off your boundaries and send it back over. I feel like that should be just like the standard, especially when it comes to any type of duo content or, adult content in general.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand if one of the three people that were like involved in that situation felt that their boundaries were seriously crossed, because I mean, if the boundaries weren't communicated clearly when they added that third person in, that, I mean, that could be traumatic. Everybody ingests, things that happen to them in different ways.
Yeah, I do know that that extra girl that was added on was traumatized. I talked to her afterwards, kind of got her thoughts and feelings because at the time I was really gaslighting myself and being like, no, this is normal. This is normal. No, like you're just being dramatic. You're not being open minded. And, when I reached out to her about everything and she was like, that was really messed up what happened to us. And I was like, okay, so she's not the only one that feels like this was traumatic. Cause
Yeah.
she's not so deep into like, as deep into the modeling stuff as like the rest of us are. So she kind of has that more like real world perspective where it's not, like skewed by, people manipulating you and stuff. And she's also just
Hmm.
more of an independent thinker too.
Yeah, I understand. It can be tough. And the gaslighting yourself part too, like I can resonate with that in other personal situations in my past. Because at first you want to say, I agreed to this, I was in control of what was happening, because you want to believe that for yourself. But then sometimes later on you think, you know what? I did not have a say in what was happening, and I wish it didn't happen the way it did. But what can you do?
Yeah, it just like it was a damn like that whole situation like really was negative for everybody. And and people's names got dragged through the mud and stuff and rumors were flying and it was just like it was a whole mess.
That sucks.
I mean, and the poor the my other co-star who was in that video with me, I mean, like there was like rumors going around saying that I said that, she had RAP'd me and I had to then later, like months and almost a year later, go on and have to like publicly clear her name and be like, I never said that she did this, but for those wondering about that situation, she never did this, everything that day was consensual, which is why I was nervous to bring this up, because I don't want to reopen up any wounds for anybody who was involved in that situation or, have a potential for that everything to get started back up again. But I do feel like it's important to talk about because it's literally worst case scenario that
Yeah.
happened. And I feel like, people who are newer in the industry or people who are already in the industry, this is a valuable story for them to hear and to kind of take away from it. Cause after that whole incident, I really changed everything that I was doing completely.
Wow. It was massively impactful. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for being so like vulnerable and open and sharing that story, because I can imagine, yeah, it's probably hard to talk about.
It is hard to talk about, but the way that I see it too is like the worst thing that could possibly happen to any model's career happened to me. I had a hateful status posted about me written by a very, very popular individual in my area, a photographer. And, I really had to overcome that whole situation. And it literally is the worst thing that could possibly happen to a model, in my opinion, one of the worst, aside from being, essayed. having somebody try to drag your name through the mud and everything. So I'm like, okay, the worst thing that could possibly happen happened. So now we can just freely talk about it because, it's not going to happen again.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your experience and how all that went down. But yeah, you're right. Like, I think that people pleasing is definitely a trauma response. It's kind of also how we as women are conditioned. So people want to point the blame at if you went into freeze mode and just kind of like or freeze or fawn mode where you're just either frozen up and you don't know how to say no, or you're in fawn mode where you're just like trying to please the other person, or in this case, everybody involved, to like get out of the situation eventually when it finishes. It's a lot of people say, oh, if I was being put in a situation that was making me uncomfortable, I would just leave. But when it's like a social situation and there's lots of people involved, like you're kind of second guessing yourself. You're like, are they going to be pissed if I like stop? And if they're pissed, am I going to be in danger?
Yeah, definitely. It's if people can say all they want, oh, if I were in that situation, I would have just left. I would just say no. And sometimes it's not that cut and dry and it's not that simple because here you are in front of a very, renowned photographer and you want to please them. You don't want to be like, I don't want to seem unfun or uncool or, because, to some of these individuals, boundaries are not cool. Boundaries are lame and your lame sauce and your drama if you have them and express them.
Yes, and that's fucked up and it's toxic. And I'm glad to see that a lot of people are moving the industry in other more positive ways. And I think that this conversation happening is contributing to that as well.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like conversations like this need to happen. And I feel like
Yeah.
it also, kind of shows, like, yeah, not everybody always says no and they have regrets afterwards, but then you take away from those. My takeaway from that was I'm never gonna shoot that type of content again. I'm done. After that whole situation, I was like, okay, we're not gonna put ourselves in a situation where there could be a third person added because when you add, choose, too many people, I also feel like contributed to that whole negative situation, but I made
Mhm.
sure not to put myself in that spot again.
That's good. I suppose unless it was like with a legit company that was not going to pull that kind of bullshit. But doing it with freelancers at a workshop or whatever, yeah, that recipe for disaster and not handled by professional or empathetic hands, unfortunately.
Exactly, exactly.
So I know we've been just talking our heads off here. I haven't gotten to the rising phoenix question yet. So, can you describe something in your life that was a challenge that you had to overcome?
Gosh, I would actually say this happened very recently. So, I kind of alluded to that. One of the worst things that can happen to a model is having a well known photographer bash them publicly. And that
Mm-hmm.
happened to me. It was such a sucky situation. I didn't really know how to handle it. Thankfully, I have some really great, PR type people in my life who were telling me how to handle that situation, and I will forever be thankful for them. I never even paid that post any mind. I never addressed it on social media. This is actually the first time I'm ever even talking about this publicly.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
I've never shared my thoughts about this publicly. It was upsetting to see. And I was waiting for all the hate messages to come my way and hate comments to come my way, and they never came. And then I watched so many amazing women and models, jump to my defense publicly and publicly defend me. And that was so amazing. And, I just sat back and just watched it all and just kind of let whatever happen happen. And the way that I saw it was, if we now, sometimes ostriching doesn't work. Sometimes you need to handle your problems head on. But with that particular problem, I felt like what was best was just, instead of adding more fuel to the fire, just staying quiet and just sitting back and just letting that wave happen. And it ended as quickly as it started. And I came out on top of it, and I feel like, it's not all models' careers can survive drama like that because this post that was made about me was bad. I mean, it was like there was a lot of untruths there were half truths there were exaggerations in there. There were people saying that like an ex-boyfriend of mine commented and was like, she came at me with a knife, and most people who know me are like, she's a pipsqueak and can't even do anything.
What?
Yeah, but it was, I mean, the post got out of hand pretty quickly, and then the post actually later was like deleted. I think it was not even up for a full 24 hours. It was up long enough that a lot of people saw it, but a lot of people defended me too. More defended me than supported that post about me. So I really had to kind of just give it time. I didn't lose anything because of it. You know, if I lost any model people in my life, it was probably for the best anyway, because in my opinion, if people are going to believe stuff about you that's not true, then that's not someone who needs to be in your life anyway, either professionally or friendship
Yeah.
wise.
Agreed. And something that I've witnessed when it comes to photographers or models or anybody really is that your reputation is really going to back you up. Have you had, or has any individual had other things mentioned about them that were, defamatory? And if somebody has a history of having derogatory things happening in association with their name, then over time it's going to be that's the person that's the problematic one, not the model that was in a threesome that was a surprise threesome. Like I'm obviously I wasn't there. I'm not gonna, pretend like I can like judge what my opinion of the situation is. It's not my business to do that. It's definitely none of my business. But just based on the description of the scenario, and my experience in modeling and being in situations where there's somebody holding the camera and then there's women in front of the camera. Generally the one holding the camera is the one that's saying what they want everybody else to do, and if that communication isn't like yes for everybody involved, then it's kind of like a power dynamic thing, which does not make the subject that's one of three subjects the problem person. Like what the heck. So I would definitely raise an eyebrow at the person filming and directing what was happening, because the intimacy coordination there was not quality.
No, it definitely was not. You know, I know that, the head model that was there, she really tried hard to like take charge of the situation and just kind of be like, okay, we're gonna talk you guys through everything. But it was just still like having that communication prior would have been extremely valuable. And
Yes.
my takeaway from that now is I just no longer say yes anymore on the spot. I have had to be like no, and I really don't care if it gets me labeled as difficult to work with.
Yeah, and the people that do find that type of behavior difficult to work with, you don't want to work with them anyway. Like if they're the
Exactly.
type of person that wants to spring something on you in the moment and then gaslight you saying, "Oh, I thought you were spontaneous and fun," like fuck those people. Like no, you have to bring shit up before expecting me to perform your fantasy. Like come on.
Yeah, and I no longer, like, do stuff for, like, personal collections anymore too. I used to offer that service of, like, "Okay, yeah, we're gonna film this video for, like, someone's personal collection." I don't do that anymore either. Like, I really, like, created a lot of hard boundaries after that whole situation.
I mean, this entire conversation that I've had with you, I've learned so much about you. And one thing that I want to note is like for the amount of time that you've been modeling, just 2 years, the amount of, like you said at the beginning, drama that you've been through and how you've had to persevere through it today in the social media atmosphere where like one bullshit thing that gets said about you could taint like, how people view you for a long time if it is allowed to become that. Like that's crazy. I feel lucky that I started way before Facebook was popular. I guess not way before, but I suppose I started modeling like 18 years ago, like
Oh
MySpace,
my
right?
goodness.
I
MySpace
know.
days.
Yeah, but like social media wasn't what it is now. And definitely like major benefits to it, like the safety groups that we have and the communication that we can have with each other as models. But it can also work just as strongly in the wrong direction. Like a rumor can spread like wildfire. And then if people have a standpoint on a situation, even if, they don't have enough information or it's really none of their business anyway, like what happened with you, like people will create their opinion about it and a standpoint. And with social media, people like, create a hatred like party train against one person over a scenario that they honestly don't even know exactly, what it's about, and it's none of their fucking business.
Yeah, absolutely. And like in the last gosh, 2 years, I feel like I've just lived like a lifetime with the modeling. I've already like been across the country already for it and stuff. I definitely am a lot further than where I thought I would be now. And like my old goals are no longer like my current goals where I'm like, you know what, that would be cool if it happened, but we're not gonna like actively try to like fight for that to happen in my life. You know, like I would love to shoot for Playboy or shoot for Med Art at some point in my career, but it's not something I'm going to be like, I'm going to go the ends of the earth to reach this
Yeah,
particular goal. If it happens, it happens. And that's kind of seems to be how things have gone for me, where it's like just kind of opportunities have like fallen in my lap. And I'm like, all right, cool. We'll take this and run with it and see where it goes, see where it takes us.
that's cool. Yeah, yeah, and that's the way to be. When I first started, I had all these, sky high imaginations of what I was going to be as a model, and it didn't serve me because it really wasn't what I actually wanted, and I didn't really know what I wanted. I thought I was going to be a petite fashion runway model because I was obsessed with the show America's Next Top Model, and I was
Oh,
like,
I
that's
watched that show when I was a kid. That was
yeah,
like epitome of reality TV.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so I thought that's what you had to do. I was like taking notes, and anything that was a gig that I found that I like tried to do that was fashion related was all a scam. Everything was a scam. And in the end I decided, okay, the people that are interested in working with me and hiring me are the people who are doing like body paint and like glamour and nude and stuff. So I'm like, all right, it's not the big break that I should be aiming for. It's just enjoying a bunch of smaller gigs that are enjoyable experiences for me and just continuing to do that. So I think that you're on the right track with not, I mean, trying to like do all these things that make your name look big because that's just popularity contest bullshit in the end.
Oh yeah, like if Playboy ever were to happen and fell on my lap, great. If I'm not gonna cry myself to sleep over if it never happens, but
Yeah,
I've really been enjoying just sitting back and relaxing and just kind of being like wherever the wind takes me. The wind took me to Muses, which was just like probably favorite experience so far.
that's awesome. And you're doing the dancing and you're getting into the aerial and like all that stuff that's also enhancing your variety of posing. I think that
Yes.
yeah, just go with that. Like that's cool. And when people like see your stuff online and they follow you, like that's what's going to resonate with them the most. Not like if you got published in Playboy or whatever. Like that might happen, but that's not you. Like I think that what you are doing is really cool.
Yeah, and like I had always like told myself like no matter what I was going to be true to myself, and I think those who know me in real life can attest this because it's been said to me, but the way that I am online is the same exact way that I am in person. I do not have this fake sexy personality. I don't have it in me to be fake, and nothing against those who do. I know that some like to have like that wall of like this is my personal life and this is who I am and I'm going to keep this secret and safe, and then have an alternate because you can't protect yourself having this kind of like alternate persona. For me, I
Mhm.
just can't keep up with it. So I'm like, we're just gonna be all Darian all the time online, unapologetically.
That's awesome. I mean, that's so cool. I've loved having this conversation with you, and it gives me more like I suppose faith in humanity to hear from other models like who have even just gotten into it, like you, just saying stuff that you only want to be yourself and do things that make you happy. 'Cause that for me took a long time to figure out. So that's awesome that you're there.
Yes.
So we're closing up to the amount of time that I usually have these podcasts go for. Is there anything else you wanted to mention on the podcast?
No, not really. I think we hit like all of my talking points because I had like little notes written down and everything for this. I took this very seriously because this is my first podcast. So I was like, if we're gonna talk about stuff, we're gonna do it right. We're gonna make notes.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having all those stories pulled up and prepared because I love stories. I love hearing other and the guy with the octopus, I fought with the same octopus. Like what? Like that's
Now
crazy
now I feel like a little starstruck, like, "Oh, this is the
to
same octopus that Chrissy Jessica also wrestled," like, it's giving me a little starstruck
me.
moment.
Oh my god, I think I have that video on an old hard drive. I'll see if I can find it.
Oh, man, those videos, man, they are, like, some of my most favorite things to shoot. I love lighthearted, fun content. There's something to be said for, sticking up and smile, doing the glamour thing because I like, being like, "Yeah, I'm a mom who had a double C-section, breastfed 2 kids, and here I am, 28 and a glamour model." There's something to be said for that, but there's also just, like, something about just wrestling with that polka dotted octopus that just unleashes a beast.
Nice. All right, Darian, I'm gonna let you go now, but I'd love to have you in a future episode sometime if you'd like to. I'm planning on coming up with like more targeted, like topical episodes down the road, like when I run out of models to interview, where I can bring you back and maybe even have more than one model, kind of like have a back and forth
Oh, that
discussion
would be
about
fun.
opinions and stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.